punishment for desertion is either slavery or execution. So Spartacus and his wife are roped neck to neck, whipped and beaten as they march, and put in a dark hole of a cargo ship for a 1,000-mile journey to Rome. They're both auctioned off in the Roman slave market. Of course, they're standing stark naked. Spartacus never sees his wife again. She is sold to a brothel. He is sold to a gladiator school in Capua, 125 miles south of Rome. Now, the owner of the school and the owner of Spartacus is Lentilius Batius, a very, very cruel man. Lentilius keeps his gladiators chained up in close confinement until it's time for them to fight. This is a very brutal, notorious, prison camp-like atmosphere gladiator school. The men are guarded day and night, and as I mentioned, often kept in chains. Spartacus now has to endure flogging, branding. He has to eat and sleep with 200 other men. And he has to pledge to bind his body and soul to his owner, Lentilius. Now, disobedience in a gladiator school means, well, castration, crucifixion, or if you're lucky, a quick death by the sword. Gladiator combat, of course, is a tradition far more ancient than the city of Rome. It originates with the Etruscans, Etruria. This is essentially as a part of a ritual to appease the gods. A deceased male relative would stage the fights, and they were performed at funerals. Now, the tradition spreads to Rome. There's a lot of Etruscan cultural influences in Roman society. And essentially, when it spreads to Rome, it retains the same function as a funerary rite until the end of the Republic. Now, the first known Roman gladiatorial contest happens in 264 BC for the funeral of a gentleman known as Pera. He's from the Lunian family line. At this point in time, in 264 BC, there are no special venues for these combats. They take place in private homes or sometimes in the forum. There's generally fewer than a dozen gladiators that take part, and fights are not always to the death. They're far too expensive. Now, during the late Republic, gladiatorial combats become a way for the Roman elite to display their wealth. It takes lots of money to acquire and train a gladiator. The owner risks losing his financial investment if the gladiator is killed in a fight. Most gladiators were either slaves or prisoners of war, but some were free men, usually rural poor, looking to make money. Now, Spartacus is, of course, an exceptional choice for a gladiator. He served in the Roman army as an auxiliary soldier. He has tenacity and a fighting spirit. Now, the dictator Sulla is the guy who introduced the Thracians as gladiators into the arena. Captive Thracians are forced to fight with their native weapons, and they use their peculiar techniques of their own ethnic origins. The armor for the Thracian gladiator was a small rectangular or square shield. He wears two shin guards above the knee. The helmet, which is known as the thorax, was a curving helmet with a Griffith decoration. It's deeply brimmed with cheek guards. Now, the sword that the Thracian used was known as the sicca, or the sika. This is a very short, curving, dagger-like weapon designed for close-quarter combat and used for thrusting. Now, the sika does have some variations in its shape and size. It's a specialist weapon imported to Rome for use in the arena, but it was manufactured in Thrace in traditional fashion. Now, we only know the Sika from depictions in art. In the countries of the Black Sea region, iron was a very scarce commodity. The recycling of weapons was necessary, and few, if any, of the Sikas have survived, and archaeological finds of a Sika are very, very rare indeed. Now, the Thracians become very popular with the crowds in the arena, and this style of gladiator persists for centuries. Their style of fighting, as I mentioned, features elements of their combat traditions. Now, as the gladiatorial games develop, the Thracians lose their connection to their ethnic origins, and Thracians become a style of fighting, not a people. Now, Lentilius knows that his new purchase, Spartacus, a Thracian, will become very popular with the crowds, and it's gonna make him, Spartacus is gonna make him well, an awful lot of money. Now, Spartacus has the gladiatorial X factor, a willingness to kill. That's now going to combine with intensive training, the moves of attack and defense. He will be drilled to perfection. Thousands will flock to the arenas to see this massive Thracian fight other gladiators, as well as wild animals. And, well, as I mentioned, Lentilius has, he knows he's going to make a lot of money. Now, Spartacus is, in fact, caught in a curious social state. He's going to be idolized by the spectators, the crowds at the arena, but he's also going to be considered the lowest of the low. The Romans will honor his combat and his courage in the face of death, but they will also despise him. They will spit at him outside of the arena. Now, Capua, where Spartacus is training, was the center of the gladiatorial sport, the most important site to the sport. The city is known for its gladiatorial excellence throughout the empire. Now, Spartacus trains for a year in this nightmare world, filled with violence, cruelty, and brutality. Now, some gladiators bond with each other. They never have escape far from their minds. Some of them are biding their time. But they're all separated by language and culture. You have, at the gladiatorial school in Capua, you have Thracians, you have Gauls, you have Germans, you have Spaniards, you have North Africans, you have people from Asia Minor.